What is your name and company name?
My name is John Small. My wife and I own Sunny Radio in Sioux Falls.
What does your company do?
Our radio station plays 80s music all the time, so we play music from the 1980s and work with local businesses to help them grow.
How long have you had this business?
We started in 2010. Up until that point, I worked for other people, so I did this for other people for a long time, about 15, 16 years, something like that. And then we started our own company back in 2010, so this is our 9th year of business.
What do you do differently than others?
One of the things that we try to do is we try to focus on working with one business per business category. So like when you listen to Sunny Radio, we have shorter commercial breaks, which our listeners really like, instead of going to commercials. Not that commercials are bad, they're good. But instead of going to commercials for a long time, we keep the breaks a lot shorter. And then we work with one business per category. So there are some stations where you'll hear like 5 car dealers in a row. I could never do that. That's an integrity thing. If I'm saying, I'm going to do everything I can to help you sell more cars, I can't say, and you, and you, and you, and you. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So we work with one business per category. One of the other things we do that's a little unique is we don't ask people to commit for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. A lot of places when you advertise, they make you commit for a year or 6 months or whatever. Instead, we commit to you. I just said, from the beginning, that was important to me. I said, you do this as long as you want to do it. And if you never want to quit, just keep doing it. And we've got clients that have been on the air with us for years, some from the very beginning, 2010, that have never left. So their rate has never gone up. And I have people that say, well, that's crazy. And I said, no, that's a great idea. I learned that from a radio station I worked for in Iowa. And when I was there in 2001, I had a client that had been on the air, the same exact agreement from 1982. And I just thought that was really cool that this radio station has worked with this guy since 1982, and he got the same rate since 82. And with us, we've got clients that have the same rate since 2010. And the nice thing about that is, I haven't sold them anything since 2010. I don't need to. Instead, I take the time and effort that I invest with that client to help them sell something. So instead of me coming in every time I walk in, hey, what's your ad special this month? We don't even have that conversation. Instead, I'm saying, what can we help you sell this month? And it just changes the dynamic of everything, and I really like that a lot.
What are you known for?
I think one of the things that we're known for is we do things that are different. When we started the radio station, our cute little logo that we came up with for Sunny Radio, if I would have known this was going to become a tattoo, those glasses would look a lot different. But you can see the Sunny tattoo. I was the number 13. I had a dozen listeners that had that as a tattoo before me. And it was just a goofy thing. One morning, my wife and I were doing the morning show, and there was a story about a bizarre tattoo story. And my wife said, hey, I got an idea. Let's give away a free tattoo. I said, why would we do that? She said, I think Sunny would be a cool tattoo. I said, if you want to get a Sunny tattoo, you call and talk to Heidi. And a guy called in. Paul Brown was the guy's name. Paul, we love you, man. It was awesome. I was like, that's really cool that he's calling in saying, I want to do this. So that afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're at a tattoo shop getting a tattoo buzzed on this guy's arm. And if you really want to have, like a freak out moment, Google radio station tattoo. And at that time, I was just thinking, I wonder how many radio stations have done this. I mean, has anyone done this before? There was one story about a station in Indianola, Iowa, where the morning guy said, hey, if you get our logo tattooed on your forehead, I'll give you $100,000. So a guy went and did it, and he gave him a candy bar, the $100,000 candy bar. So that did not end well. That guy was fired. The radio station was being sued. And the entire company sold. The guy that owned it sold the company, and like everybody lost their job. So I'm reading this as we're going to get a tattoo. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So we have a little agreement people sign, and it explains that everything we agreed to is on this page, so they can't say, hey, you told me if I got this I'd get concert tickets for life or whatever. It just says we'll give you a Sunny t-shirt. We haven't done a Sunny tattoo in a while. We quit about 2 years ago. We've got a list of people that want them, and we're going to start it again. We just talked to a guy about starting it back up again, but we took a little break. We said, let's take a break for a while. But the thing that's amazing to me, there could be one crazy person that'll do anything. So Paul, the first guy, that was really neat. But it was really number 2 and number 3 and number 4 and number 5. When those were trickling in, I was like, what is going on here? Because, you can have one crazy person does something, but I'm like, why are these other people doing this? These followers, why are there other people that are getting the tattoo? And then they're saying, John, when are you going to get your Sonny tattoo? And I was like, I'll be lucky number 13. It's my wife's lucky number. So you'll notice there's some people that are pretty clever that figured this out. There's 13 points on Sonny. I did that for my wife when I designed it. But it's not symmetrical. So every design person that sees it, sorry, I did it for my wife, not you. But we, that's one of the things we're known for, is doing things that are just a little different. And because we can. I don't have to get permission from a board of directors. Not that that's bad, but I worked in that world for a long time. And anytime I wanted to do something, I had to ask my boss, who had to ask his boss, who had to ask his 7 bosses, who had to ask their bosses, then the board of directors, and nothing would ever happen because it just couldn't in that environment. It was really hard to do things. But now it's, if I want to do something, I ask my wife, hey, what do you think? You want to do this? Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's try it. Sometimes she says no, and I say, I'm going to try it anyway. So that's not a good idea. But it's I think we're known for taking some risks. Does everything pan out? No. We've done some things where we go, wow, that didn't really work. But at least we know. I mean, try stuff. As an entrepreneur, sometimes people are so afraid, I'm going to test everything, I'm going to test it to death before we ever do it. By the time you finally do it, you're going to be sick of it. I mean, sometimes you just dive in. Now, don't dive in head first. That's dumb. Dive in foot first. Test the waters. But some people test the waters so long that by the time they finally pull the trigger, I mean, the race is done. We're like, you guys should have done this 2 years ago. So I think when you ask what we're known for, I think we're known for taking risks and trying things that a lot of other radio stations would never try, like 80s music all the time. We did that. We were the first radio station in America to do all 80s all the time. There was one station in England, one station in New Zealand, and Sunny Radio in 2010. And then in 2014, there was a guy that did an article about the 80s format. And it was funny because there was a station in Albuquerque, New Mexico, did one paragraph about them. A station in Appleton, Wisconsin, one paragraph about them. And then we owned a station in Sioux City at the time as well, and our station in Sioux Falls. And it was like 3 or 4 paragraphs about Sunny. So we, at the time, owned 50% of the 80s radio stations in the country. And he talked about what we're doing and how we're doing it differently, and that he really liked what we were doing. Because there's some people, when they do the 80s format, they think, well, everything's got to be a real cliche, and they only play the top 3 songs from every artist. We're like, we would be so sick of hearing Madonna if we only played 3 of her songs. She had a lot more than that. But other stations, when they're doing 80s music, they're only playing like the top 3 or 4. We'll play songs where you hear it and go, man, I haven't heard this in years. Because it was not their biggest hit. We played their biggest hit too, but you'd get sick of it if that's all we did. So we play some other songs too. So I guess kind of taking the risks and trying to have fun.
What would you like people to know about your business? Oh, how do people find you? And where can we find you on social media?
You can find us on the web at sunnyradio.com. You can find us on the radio, 93.3 FM and AM 1520 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And then online, we're also, we try to be pretty active on social media. And Facebook is my social media of choice because that's the one I get. I understand that one. So facebook.com/sunnyradio. But I got to say, Twitter is pretty cool. And I know a lot of people around here don't use Twitter as much. But here's the thing I like about Twitter. We have our streaming player set up. So every time we start a new song, it'll send a tweet saying, now playing Loverboy, Working for the Weekend. Or whatever song it is. I use that as an example because that's one of the bands that followed us on Twitter because we were playing their song, and then I followed them, and if we're following each other, we can chat. So we've done interviews with a bunch of bands from the 80s because they follow us on Twitter, and we follow them, and then we can communicate. And I just think there's something about that that's really cool. And these bands love the fact that there's a radio station devoted to their era. And there's a lot of people who say, oh, they're has-beens. No, these are people that are really great people, and they're out touring right now. And when they show up, Grand Falls Casino has a concert, about every month with somebody that we play, and people show up. A lot of people show up. So a big thank you to Grand Falls for continuing to bring people to the area. And Denny Sanford Premier Center, they got Def Leppard. They've already had them there a couple times, and they're coming back. They wouldn't do that if tickets weren't selling.
Why did you start your own business?
I started my own company because for years I worked for other people, and I was the guy that would show up early, and I would stay until everybody was gone, and I was there, at the end of the day. So I was in at 5:30 or 6 a.m., and quite often I was there till late at night because I love what I do. I can't imagine doing something else. I don't know what that would be because, this is kind of what I was made for, I think. I'm not going to claim to be the best in the world at it because I don't know who that is, but I'm sure it's somebody other than me. But I love what I'm doing, and I try to continually get better all the time. Some of the things that as a business owner, you'd think, hey, I don't have any bosses now. Wrong. Everybody's your boss. I mean, when I worked for other people, I had like one boss. He had bosses, and they had bosses. But now, every listener is my boss. Every advertiser is my boss. I mean, so if you're saying, I'm going to work for myself so I can do whatever I want to do, well, you can do that for a short while, but you know what? You're probably going to get fired from yourself because that's not going to be successful. I mean, you still have to do things to make sure that whatever it is you're doing is productive, and whatever you're doing is, still something that people want. But I guess working for myself, the reason I did it is because I wanted to do things differently. In an industry where we're filled with followers, a lot of people who don't want to be the first. We decided to do the 80s format. I had a radio station not too far from here. It's not in Sioux Falls, but it's within an hour. And most people could probably guess what town that is. We used to own a radio station there. But I had a competitor there. But at the time, he was actually a client of mine. Before we started Sunny, I had a company where we were consultants for people. And I would go all around the country and do events. And one of my clients was about an hour south of here. And when we were doing Sunny Radio, he said, why 80s music? That's never going to work. Nobody's doing that. I mean, I've never seen a station do that. I said, that's why 80s music. Because there's nobody in Sioux Falls doing that. We had 2 rock stations at the time. We had 3 country stations at the time, 2 talk stations, 2 sports stations, oldies, top 40. I mean, everything that you could think of, we had it. And one station said, we'll play everything. So what does that leave? Well, it doesn't really leave any of the major formats. So we said, let's do something different then. And my wife was saying, 80s music, that's it. I'll tell you what I wanted to do. I'm glad I didn't get my way. Our first station, AM 1520, I wanted to be funny 1520. I wanted to do like a comedy channel, which never would have worked. So I'm really glad. As much as I love comedy, I don't think that would have sustained. And I don't think we'd have people with our tattoo. Because the 80s format, when she first came to me and said, I want to do 80s music, like a good husband, I tried to prove to her what a bad idea that was. All of my broadcast friends were saying, thumbs down, no way, that'll never work. I went online and started researching it, and I found that there was nobody doing that in the United States. But the online stations that were doing that had a massive amount of people listening to it. And XM and Sirius, both of them, you can look and see how many people are listening to what channel. And the top channels were always, like 80s on 8 was always in the top, Hair Band Nation, which is majority of 80s rock. They were always top channels back then. And I said, man, if people are, leaving radio to go to XM radio because radio won't give them what they want, let's give them what they want. Let's see what'll happen. And we've had people who have called us and said, we used to listen to XM radio. We got rid of it because we listen to Sunny all the time now. So, I mean, we're helping save people money, which is not that it's a ton of money, but it's still, I just think that's really cool. But by taking a risk and trying something different. So that's why I wanted to start my own company, because working for someone else, they wouldn't let us try that.
What was your hardest obstacle?
Hardest obstacle along the way. There's one that comes to mind right away that I can't talk a whole lot about. There's a lawsuit currently. So we had, and I'll give you the broad strokes. We had committed to sell the station to another party, and they made an offer. We accepted the offer. We got the escrow money. They changed their mind and want the escrow money back, which that's not how it works, but it's up to a judge to decide now. So anyway, so we're currently suing over that. I've never sued anybody in my life, so it sucks. Our jury trial was supposed to be this year, January. Well, now it's going to be like May.